Right, everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Social Podcast from HF Angling. And today's guest is a man with a lot of experience in different areas of fishing, been fishing pretty much all of his life. As it happens, we've known each other for some 40 plus years. And there's some stories to that as well. But this is Stuart Mitton, also a committee member of Nantwich Angling Society, which is always nice. Stuart, I mean, great to have you on. Thank you for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. I think to start off, I'm going to ask you a very basic question that I'll ask everybody, and I think that'll just lead to where we're going.
Yeah.
And that is, how did it all start for you?
Wow, goodness me. As many young boys of our age, growing up, the interest in fishing came from a family member. Not my father,
Right.
my grandfather.
Right.
Grandfather was passionate about his angling. He lived in the border of Cheshire and Staffordshire over in Scholar Green, and he lived in the lodge at a place called Ramsdell Hall.
Right.
Now that's a beautiful place, if anybody knows it. It's an incredible house, and the lodge backs onto the canal, so many an hour was spent. I'm sure it was more of a case of Grandad, let's get out of the house for an hour and over to the canal and fishing with bread paste and an old cane rod and centre pin reel.
Right.
Taught me to fish, and many a happy hour spent there, and in the pool that belonged to the hall as well at the time. So I'm going back to here, probably the early 70s, as a 6 or 7 year old boy.
Wow.
And that's how it all started.
So did you, let's say, and you might not be able to remember this because we are getting on a little bit.
We are.
Do you remember the first fish you caught?
I do.
You do?
I do.
What was it?
It was a roach of about probably 3 or 4 ounces, if that.
Yeah.
I do remember specifically, and I remember my grandfather, a little bit like Mortimer and Whitehouse, don't reel, because I was trying to wind this thing in on
Get it as quick as possible.
And it was literally a case of getting it in as quick as we could, and that was the first fish I ever caught, a small roach on the canal. Yeah.
Wow. And then that was it for you then?
It was something that fixated with me, just seeing that fish in my hand and knowing that I'd caught it was something quite magnificent.
It's an amazing thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like I've said to people before, when I first caught a fish and had that fish in my hands, I relate it to, it was like I am now right in front of an alien.
Yeah.
This is from a different world in which I don't belong.
Yeah.
I have no business being this close to you. And I just found it absolutely
fascinating,
incredible,
and it's captivating, isn't it?
And to this day it's the same.
Yeah.
You know, my favourite species of fish is a perch.
Yes. Yeah.
Every time I catch a perch, I just can't stop staring at the damn thing.
Yeah, beautiful fish.
It's like the perfect example of evolution that has developed this hunting creature.
Yeah.
And every aspect of it is designed for survival.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing.
And irrespective of how big they are, even the smallest fish are the most aggressive little things.
Yeah, I mean it's just in their nature, in their DNA, and off they go. So I get that totally. So did you just carry on fishing that canal spot then? At
the canal, a number of farm pools over on that sort of Cheshire, Staffordshire border area that my grandfather knew a lot of people in that area. He'd lived there a very long time. When I moved over to Cheshire to Weston back in probably the late 70s, just before we went to secondary school where I met you, of course, I used to fish in a pool in Weston called the Gits. If anybody's local, you might know it. It's very, very overgrown now, and I don't even know whether you'd be able to cast a line into the water. But many an hour was spent with the lads from the village fishing at the Gits. It was either playing cricket on the field, playing football on the field, or fishing in the pond, and that was it. That was all we did. And happy times, really happy times. And that, incidentally, was where I caught my first ever tench.
Was it?
One Saturday afternoon, I remember it clearly, catching a tench, and actually leaving it in the keep net and running home to get my dad to come and witness it because there was no one else around.
Wow.
So I interrupted my father from listening to the football on the radio. He hid his displeasure amazingly well, shall we say.
Good
and
man.
came down to see this tench, which was probably about £1.50, but for me it was arguably the biggest fish I'd caught
without
in my
doubt.
life, and seeing that, and I guess that's probably why the tench is one of my most favourite species to catch.
Right. It's funny, isn't it? Because that magic you get, that feeling from catching a first type of a certain species of fish, it remains, doesn't it?
It becomes etched on your memory.
Yeah, it's like that fish that species of fish will always be special to you when you catch them.
Yeah.
I totally get that. So little pools like that, and you're just you generally float fishing?
Float fishing, yeah. And there was another pool, which is now, again, grown over, filled in. It was just on the road between Weston and Shellington. On the right-hand side, there was farmers' fields adjacent to the railway line, and in there we used to go and catch crucian after crucian on the float. Just catch only 6 inches long at the most, but marvellous fish.
Right, yeah,
Incredible days, and now, sadly, I don't see many crucian. It's actually a rarity now. And that gives me, it's still a great thrill to catch a crucian carp now.
Yeah. So, were you fishing very regularly? Was this something that you did a lot of the time?
A lot of the time, as a schoolboy, yes, it was. And I continued to fish until I was around 17, 18 years old. And then, as lots of other people, I was fixated with trying to catch carp and big carp.
Yeah.
I joined a water over towards Whitchurch, and actually that started me falling out of love with fishing.
Right.
I used to turn up and say good morning to everybody, as we did as kids or young men. And you'd get a grunt back, and have you caught anything? And one particular morning I'd got a fish on both rods, and I was really struggling, and nobody came to offer any help, and I just thought, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And literally within a week I'd sold all my gear.
All the carp?
Yeah, everything had gone, everything totally.
Yeah?
Yeah, just totally fell out of love with fishing. That took me into another world where I got into cycling and became quite a reasonable amateur cyclist for a number of years. I never thought about fishing at all.
Yeah.
For umpteen years, until I moved back to Nantwich 10 years ago, and I thought it's such a shame not to be able to fish the river.
Yeah.
When I'm only a stone's throw from the house.
Yeah.
So I went over to Mum's in Haslington, and Mum had got some stuff in the shed there from a house in Weston, from our house in Weston. I routed through
some of your original gear?
Yeah, there was a couple of old reels. There was an Intrepid Black Prince in there, which is probably most people our age would be able to relate to the Intrepid Black Prince, which was a little bit grindy and awful, but and I thought, why not get into this and sort of go back to the days of fishing with grandfather and the cane rod and the centre pin, and as you know, Dan, and I'm sure the viewers are going to find out, that's the love of my angling.
That's one of the ways it's gone for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got back into your fishing on the Weaver some 10 years ago, you said?
Yeah, it's about 10 years ago when I started to.
And so how did it come round then, that from fishing locally, obviously, as I can imagine, because a similar thing happened with me, and I think a lot of people, you start fishing when you're younger, and you either love it or you don't love it, but if you love it, you carry on. Then you get to a certain age where the only thing you're interested in is girls and beer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fish don't really have the same appeal when you
point.
get to sort of 16, 17, that's all you want to do. I did a very similar thing, went off and did all sorts of other things, came back into it and instantly loved it, and I'm presuming that you were the same. When you got back into it 10 years ago, you just straight back in that zone.
Everything sort of fell back into place, weirdly, as if I'd never been away.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, and this is one of the bonuses for fishing for me that I didn't foresee. When I got back into fishing, which for me was about 4 years ago now, I did it because I wanted to go fishing, right? I wanted to catch fish, of course. But what I've come to realise, and it happened very quickly, was, and it's just got deeper and deeper and deeper, is that the bonus of going fishing is you're out in nature. And I refound my love for nature, for being out on my own or perhaps with a friend or John Joe, my lad, who you know, do a lot of fishing with John Joe, and that's, for me, I love it.
That's magical, going with
perfect.
the sun, yeah.
It's absolutely perfect, mate. But so the point I'm making is when I got back into it, and it sounds the same with you, is that you just straight back where you were. You fall in love with it. It doesn't lose anything with aging at all. In fact, I think you gain things, don't you?
Yes, I was going to say, actually, I found it more beneficial.
Yeah.
I totally connect with you in terms of the nature.
Yeah.
Perhaps because I'm not a very good angler.
Well, you've got nothing else to do, you're going to look
I
around.
end up watching the birds and watching the wildlife and such like. But joking aside, it really took me back to those days of being a child with not a care in the world.
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it?
Spending time with people who I loved dearly, my grandfather, my grandparents.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's actually quite emotional when I think about that.
Oh, of course, mate.
I can see the old man now.
Yeah.
With his
his
basket and his creel, and the thing he used to drive into me is take your time. Don't do anything in a rush. And it used to pain me how slow he was, just settling up.
You just want to get that bait straight away. I was the same, mate. I was the same.
My grandfather in meticulous preparation, and the night before was often spent making bread paste in the sink with stale bread. And
nice.
And I'm thinking he's got a ball the size of a cricket ball. That's not going to last all day. But of course, it was never intended to last all day. It was until it ran out, and then we were off. We'd go home. Yeah. Digging worms in the vegetable patch in the garden. And
golden memories,
mate.
It's
awesome. Right?
Golden memories.
Yeah. It's not just the sight of the recall. It's the sights and the smells as well.
Everything.
The smell of the fresh.
It's all the senses.
Yeah.
It's all the senses, and it's something that is. Because the thing that I've found is that now I can quite happily, and I would never have done this for years, apart from when I was very young. When I was very young, because I grew up in a village, so I grew up with nature all around me, and I was always out.
Yeah.
Always out in nature. And you might not be thinking at the time, what's great about this is that I'm out in nature. You're thinking I'm with my mates and we're all having fun.
We're all outside, yeah.
But then years and years later, I get back into fishing, and I'm just getting all these reminders of this is who I used to be. This is where I used to spend all my time. And
it's a rediscovery, isn't
It
it?
is, and I'm really, the value of it just hit me.
Yeah.
And it's, it hasn't gone away one bit. I adore it to this day.
It's just laid dormant, hasn't it?
That's it.
As we grew up, and we chatted about this earlier, didn't we? Very briefly, as we did the growing up things.
Yeah.
We met our partners, we got married, we had children.
Yeah.
We had a busy life.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that I rediscovered fishing when I did. Like we were saying, how perfect it is that I go fishing with John Joe so much. He's 31 now.
Yeah.
So when I got back into fishing, he was 27. It wasn't like I was taking a small kid
child,
fishing, which then you've got worries about safety and it's a fantastic thing. And I clearly remember the first time I went fishing. That was with my dad.
Yeah.
So that I hold that dear to me now as well. So you're back into your fishing in Nantwich and catching a few, I hope.
A few.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Where did the involvement with Nantwich Anglers start then?
There's a couple of things really. One, being now a resident of Nantwich, and I have been, for 10 years now. So as a dabber, I'm not even on the scale because some of these families have been there generations. But I do feel a genuine connection to the place.
Yeah.
I always felt it was homely, and I thought wouldn't it be nice if I could not only fish but try and contribute to the society, the Nantwich Angling Society. And I don't know if you know this, Dan, but it was formed in 1881.
Was it?
So it's
Was it you? Did you
41 years, not quite. I would look a bit grey around
We're not
the
that
gills,
old, are we?
but it's very, very historical, and it's always been a club for the people of the town.
Right.
Primarily to make affordable fishing available to local anglers, not just people from Nantwich, of course, but local anglers. So I was asked if I'd like to get involved in the committee, and of course it was an easy decision for me. The answer was yes, of course. And for the last few years I've been the treasurer, so I have a sense of deep responsibility.
Yeah.
The club, thankfully, is going from strength to strength, and we've gone up from sort of 300 or so members to double that in the last few years. Our aim is to take on more new waters that are accessible and local to Crewe and Nantwich, I think that's really important, that we don't want to be a huge society.
No.
We don't want to have waters spread across Cheshire and Staffordshire and beyond. It's about how do we keep the fishing relatively local.
I agree with that.
So yes, there's a sense of responsibility, and it's heartwarming to see the club now going from strength to strength.
Yeah. How much do you think, or what sort of impact did the whole COVID thing have? Because I know that fishing license applications went through the roof, and you know that when we could go fishing again, all the day ticket waters were rammed, you know, and so I presume that you got a lot of new members.
We do, and the thing around that time, it was an awful time for so many people, and it was an opportunity to get out and do something.
Yeah.
And many people, I'm sure, just like you and I did, found it as the opportunity to reconnect.
Yeah.
And often those people of our age with their children, and younger children of course, it was a great opportunity to get out. And we did see the membership grow, and there was a concern that it may have been a bubble, and post-pandemic it would die off. I'm pleased to say that has continued.
That was really the next question. So it's maintained its numbers. That's brilliant.
Yeah. But I also know how passionately we both feel about it, is that, you know, it is that reconnection. It is doing things that we used to do as children with such fond memories.
Yeah.
And people now able to pass that on to their children, because ultimately the success of Nantwich Anglers is not by people of my age and your age. It's the development of that passion in the youngsters. Yeah. The youngsters are the lifeblood of the club.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, always it's like a business, isn't it? The lifeblood of any business is the new business.
It's the new business.
Because that's the future.
Yeah.
We're all just temporary, aren't we?
That's right.
So that's good to know. Are you glad you became a committee member?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I do feel it's a very worthwhile role.
Must have some frustrations.
There's a few frustrations, yeah. There's a few frustrations. I think for me, it's about, I work in business, as you know, Dan, and one of the biggest risks you can take as a business is to grow too quickly.
Yeah.
So we've got to manage that growth whilst also being able to keep the needs of our customers, our members, at the forefront of our minds.
Yeah.
To find pools now is a challenge.
Of course it is.
You know, farmers perhaps don't want people traipsing across their land and leaving litter. That's one thing that really does frustrate me. Is
me too, mate.
The amount of stuff, you know, I live in such close proximity to the river, the amount of times I pick things up and put them in the bin. I find it heartbreaking to see stories on local Facebook groups of birds that have ingested hooks or line
around same.
Yeah, I find it really
it's just totally unnecessary,
and it's very, very unnecessary.
Yeah, it's totally unnecessary. It's so easy to take stuff away.
Yeah,
but it's the mentality of people who just don't care.
It is, and I think you know, we all have a responsibility, no matter how old we are and where we fish, to educate people.
Yeah.
About the importance of taking things home. I mean, some of the scenes that you can find on the internet are horrific.
Yeah. Of
birds entangled in line, ingesting hooks, litter left that's wrapped up in some other form of wildlife. It really is heartbreaking and very, very unnecessary, as you say.
Yeah, and you can only, I mean, the thing is, you can only do so much as a committee, can't you?
I think people need to also remember that the committee are volunteers.
Yeah.
You know, we all have jobs, we all have families, and we all have lives to consume most of our lives. So, you know, everything we do is voluntary.
Yeah.
I know people get frustrated with the response to some of the questions that they ask, for example. However, we feel that united as a committee, I have to stress that, we are united as a committee that we will do things the right way, and we will take our time.
Yeah.
Because it's important. You know, I'm not going to be the one who's responsible for 141 years of history falling over.
No, 100%.
So I'm going to look after the money, I'm going to look after the club, and we all do. We all do it for a passion for angling, and that's why we're here.
Brilliant. So it was a good decision to do it. You enjoy it. It's not something that you regret.
Not at all.
That's good. That's good to hear. Let's talk a little bit about, aside from the actual fishing and the intricacies of fishing and different species, etc. something that you know is very important to me. The best way to put it is how has fishing helped you in your everyday life? You know, what differences has fishing made to you as a person?
That's a really good question. I think just the connection with the outdoors and the time I can spend free of the noise of day-to-day work,
The chaos
is really important. You know my work, and you know that it's, I won't say stressful, but it's demanding.
Demanding work.
It's demanding. I do a lot of travel, as you well know. It's not uncommon to do 1,000, 1,500 miles a week. Therefore, any hour I can spend with a rod on the bankside is recharging those batteries. It's a bit of a cliche, I guess, but I genuinely believe that it's helped me so strongly to be passionate about the mental health sides of angling as well, and what it can do for you.
Yeah, and I, as I say, I bring it up because it's something that is, it applies to me in a big way.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I'm looking at some figures recently, and the amount of people that are anglers who have had or have mental health problems is huge.
Yeah.
It's a big percentage. And because when it first started happening to me, when I was going fishing for the fun of it, I started to realise, hold on a minute, I feel so much better in myself. Yeah. I'm starting to, and whether it's that downtime when like as you said, you're in this tranquil area away from the noise, as you put it, whether it's that during that time you just, your batteries do recharge, everything just levels and resets in your mind, or whether it's just that, for me, for example, fishing gave me something to focus on. It gave me something to learn about, and I'm a big fan of learning, and when I came in HF Angling 4 years ago with John Joe, we just said, we'll go in, we'll have a little look, we'll see we'll get a little starter kit maybe, and we walked in here, mate, and as I say, predominantly I did sea angling when I was younger. I did hardly any coarse fishing at all, freshwater fishing, and we came in here, and I could have told you what about 5 items were in the entire shop.
It's all changed considerably.
Well, I was like, what? Yeah. What is that? How could you use that? And absolutely crazy. Yeah. But then I realised it was about learning. And as you know, I've got quite heavily into carp fishing. A lot to learn there with different rigs, presentations, baits, and this and that stuff that I'm doing things now 4 years later, and it's funny. Sometimes I reflect and I look back and I think, wow, if I'd seen all this stuff I've got in front of me now 4 years ago, I would have had no idea what it was all about, if it was even related to fishing. It's nice to have something that you've got to learn and focus on, and I think that's good for your mental health, isn't it?
Definitely. And the learning aspect is key, because we're never too old to learn.
No.
And when I fish with younger lads and watch them fish and their style of fishing, when I got back into fishing, I did some lure fishing competitions with a guy called Ian Whittaker, who's a mate of mine.
Yeah, I know Ian,
And we fished up and down the country in some comps. Now, I never thought that fishing in a competition would appeal to me.
Right.
Because I'm not that competitive when it comes to fishing. However, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And when you watch the guys fish as well, and particularly some of the Eastern European anglers, there's some phenomenal anglers out there.
Yeah.
Who are, I guess lure fishing is their speciality. Of course it is. That's what they do. So to learn from them and to talk to them and to see the camaraderie that they have.
Yeah.
And also their willingness to help people like me, who was quite an amateur.
You want to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there was no secrets.
No.
It was about, that's too big, that lure's too big.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, how are you going to catch something on an inch long little grass minnow?
Absolutely.
And boy, did that change our approach to lure angling.
Winners leave clues.
Yeah.
This is what I learned a long time ago. Winners leave clues. Follow them.
Yeah.
And it is great because, I've met so many people through angling, and the guys here have been so helpful to me, you know, because what I learned when I left school, when it was too late, was if I didn't understand something, tell them.
Question.
Yeah. It was too late by then, and I didn't care anyway. But you know, now I've got no qualms whatsoever with saying to somebody, "What's that?" And I'll do that.
Does that work?
If I'm with somebody else who's fishing and there's something they've got, and I'm like, "What? I want to know what is that?" Because you're obviously using it for a reason. Especially in, I mean, I'd say especially in carp angling, but I think it's the same in any type of angling. Whatever your speciality area is, you want to be able to do it to the best of your ability. And I don't mean competitively the best. It's like, I am predominantly a carp angler, but I am not aiming to be the best carp angler in the world. I'm intrinsically lazy, and that doesn't suit carp fishing.
No, you've got to work hard.
You've got to work hard at that. You know, I'm not going to get to a lake if I'm there for 24 hours and spend 6 of it looking. So, but I know that's what you should be doing. I know that I probably do 75% of what I should be doing. The 75% I do, I've now got to a point where I feel confident with. I do everything that I do very well, but I'm fully aware if I did a few more things, if I did spend a bit more time on that, I'd probably catch more fish. But I'm comfortable with where I am with it. I'm not aspiring to be the top guy.
It's about the right level for
that's
where
it.
you want to be.
And I've got total respect for people that do 100% of it, and I've got total respect for people that do 5% of it, because it's up to the individual, isn't it? Definitely. You take what you want to take from it. That's the beautiful thing about it. There's no rules to that at all. So again, from a mental health perspective, fishing is an incredibly great thing, isn't it? Now, you had some trauma a couple of years ago, and I know you're all right talking about this because we mentioned it before. Don't obviously want you to go into details, but how did fishing fit into that scenario?
I think, and it was, you know, even thinking about that time was quite emotional.
Of course.
We were in the early phases of lockdown. The trauma happened. And I think within a couple of days, 2 of my friends rang me and said, "Come on, let's go fishing."
Wow.
And I can remember, I know exactly where I went, and I know exactly who I went with, and that gave me a chance to know that people cared. And I thoroughly enjoyed those few hours that evening.
An escape from
from the pain that was happening at the time. I also spent some time with another young guy who taught me a lot about angling, and he was fishing on one of the local canals, and he messaged and said, "Come on down, come spend a few hours outside with me," and I did, and I took as much time out as I could to get on the bankside and to fish as a way of being able to cope with things.
Therapy.
It was therapy. It worked to a large extent, but
I mean, it's never going to be a fix.
It's never going to be a fix. No.
If it's a part of the process and a big part of the process, then that's got to be valued.
Definitely.
Ashmead, what a place, mate. Tell me about it.
It's one of my favourite places. I've been lucky enough to go for a number of years now. We tend to go in July, which is a great time to go. I feel with happiness thinking about that place. Owned by 2 wonderful people who are very good personal friends of mine.
Nice.
Another friendship came through fishing, as so many are. And that summer, driving down the track, having to be convinced by my boys that I should continue to go and do what I'd done for the previous years, was just something else. I'd never caught an Ashmead carp, and that weekend, the Friday through to Monday, turning up there and fishing hard, really, rather than the normal sort of my laissez-faire attempt to catch fish. I fished hard. I had a bit of help from the young lad I mentioned earlier, and I was lucky enough to catch 2 wonderful carp, not particularly big by Ashmead's size scale, but 23 and an 18.
Lovely.
On 2 consecutive nights. My first ever carp from Ashmead, and of course my first ever carp caught during the night
Which is weird, isn't it?
Very weird, yeah, to be woken from a slumber by your buzzer going off.
Yeah, and you're sort of half asleep.
What am I going to do now?
And then you've got to work out where the bloody fish is.
Yeah, and not being able to see even with a head torch, which is not really a great deal of use, but it does help a wee bit.
Yeah.
But landing that fish was magical. We sacked her up and took some pictures the next morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was special. That was a really special time.
So it was a good decision to go to Ashmead.
It was a great decision and somewhere I'm extremely fond of. Not just for the beauty. I mean, it's an incredible place down. I mean, to see the bird life and as well as the fish, just to sit and watch the fish.
Yeah.
You know, there's these huge grey torpedoes just sitting in the water, and then they get a whiff of you being there, and they just sink away and disappear.
Yeah.
And it's
just
to have seen them is something quite magical.
Isn't Ashmead, I think you might have mentioned it, changing hands at some point?
It is. It's going to a new owner after many years. An owner who I believe is the best owner that could possibly get the water and keep it as it was developed.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah, I do think it's in good hands.
That's good news.
Yeah, it's in good hands.
Yeah. So you're going to keep going?
Possibly. I think it might be time for a change for a whole host of reasons. I've got one more trip planned this July, and the carp boys are going to think I'm weird because I'm just solely going to fish for tench.
Well, fair enough. I didn't even know there's tench in there.
Yeah, some stunning tench.
Really?
Yeah, really good fish.
Yeah.
And very dark, really black fish. So that's my plan. I'll be taking my traditional gear.
Yeah.
No carp gear at all, and I'll be fishing for tench for the weekend. So
nice, mate.
Should be good.
That's nice.
Good.
That leads on very nicely to my next question or subject. You are nuts about your traditional gear, aren't you? Can we say antique?
Yes, I think it is.
Is it old enough to be? I mean,
I don't know.
When I was young, antique was
now.
like hundreds of years ago. Nowadays, antique, because of IT, I guess, could be 10 years ago.
10 years ago. So most of my rods now are from the sort of 50s and 60s.
Right.
I have a couple of reels that are older than that. But the reason I got into fishing again, particularly with the vintage tackle, was because of that hark back to grandfather. You know, the glint of the cane and the ratchet of the centre pin is an evocative memory for me. So to fish with the traditional methods, I think is just where I need to be.
Yeah, it makes it complete.
It completes a picture for me, and of course every time I go with that, there's a memory back to Grandad and traipsing across the canal and various other places. So there is that connection, that emotional connection, but I just find it really nice to fish with.
Right.
You do get some strange looks when you turn up on on waters and people are looking at who's this guy from the Crabtree era here.
Yeah.
With his cane rod and his
humans in there
and his teardrop landing net and cane handle and things.
Humans in their never-ending judgment.
Yeah. But it is magical. I mean, if I was to give you one of my rods to fish with, it's funny actually because another friend of ours, Paul Bridden, took me to the River Wye, which is another place that's very dear to my heart. Paul and I reconnected back in 2020 and I've been fishing. And we were fishing on the Wye and I'd caught my first barbel. Paul had helped me to find a spot for my first barbel. And I'd got a Mark IV carp rod, which is a really nice, beautiful rod, quite heavy, perfect for barbel fishing, with a Mitchell 300 reel.
Right.
And I gave it to Paul and Paul was like, my God, how'd you use this thing? It's so heavy. Compared to the modern tackle, of course, they are heavy and they are quite cumbersome. Yeah. But they still work.
They work, that's the thing.
And it's, and it was great to watch. But I took a great photo of Paul using the Mark IV and the Mitchell. Right. Which we chuckle about because, and he understands. He knows exactly why I do what I do. And so that's great. So there's a couple of people I need to mention, Paul being one of them. Another great friend of mine, Ed Whitby. Ed shares a similar passion for his vintage tackle. Right. And both of those two lads have helped me immensely over the last couple of years. Brilliant. Which has been incredible. And friendships we make through angling, yourself and those two and many others. Yeah.
It's a hell of a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, they say an angling friend is a friend for life.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
I genuinely believe
Yeah,
that.
I do, mate. I think it's because we share that understanding and that appreciation for things that other people just, and as I did for many years, just overlook it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you think how many times you drive past somewhere without even knowing you've driven past it, that if you actually were stood in that area, your mind would be blown. And guess what? They're everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
But we oversee it, don't we? As anglers, though, we have that joint appreciation.
It's an immersion, I think, and just to be out on the water, you know, a great other love of my life whilst I'm out is bird life, and to hear the sound of a kingfisher before you see it come whizzing past.
Yeah.
You know, your ears are tuned to it, and you can pick that up, and you know, those things are wonderful. Watching the heron, you know, far greater fisherman than I, but you watch a heron, and you watch its patience and the grace and majesty of this huge thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible, mate.
You know, there's many a time where I'll put my rod down or I'll reel in and just put the rod down and watch something happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Things that, I don't know, prior to going back to fishing I'd have missed.
Yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't even know you were missing it.
You wouldn't even know. Exactly.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
It opens your eyes, and I think, certainly for me, recognising that lesson as I did, as I came through it, it makes you realise, well, what other things do I miss out? You know, this is the thing I've found with angling, is that there's a lot of things in angling that you can relate to normal life. As you said, one of the first things your grandfather said to you was, take it slowly.
Yeah.
Now you can apply that to most areas of life.
You can.
You know, and there's also, get your preparation done.
Yeah,
You know, and I've learned a lot that I've suddenly thought, hold on a minute, I can apply that to everyday life as well. So again, it comes back to how's fishing changed you, you know, and what's it, because it does, and it's changed me hugely.
Yeah.
You know, hugely, all for the good.
I agree.
My ex-drinking buddies wouldn't agree.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, and I get that. Yeah. I wouldn't have understood it were I in their position, but I know it's all good.
Yeah.
You know, it's a healthy pursuit. Though I say it's healthy, do you know what? In the 4 years since I've been fishing, my body is knackered, mate. I'm not joking. I think you know I had the problems with my arms, tendinitis in both arms, absolutely screwed them up.
Yeah.
Now my back's knackered from lugging all the carp gear around, bending over in the bivvy and all this stuff. I had to get a power barrow because I couldn't push the bloody barrow anymore.
So we're not getting any younger.
No. I mean, maybe it's not angling, maybe it's just that I'm 56 next week. that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. But yeah, it can be life changing, and I'm sure that other passions and pursuits that people get involved in do that as well, whatever it is. But it does, for me, it's changed my entire life.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. And I know it has for you, you know.
It certainly in the last 6 or 8 months has changed my perspective. We had a conversation one morning when you were fishing and I was walking the dogs, and you said to me that you hadn't drank for goodness knows, I can't remember exactly, but it was a long time. And I remember walking away thinking, that's awesome, I need to do that. And I didn't.
No.
Because I didn't have the strength,
time,
or it
no,
wasn't the right time, or whatever.
Time wasn't right.
However, since then, I have given up drinking.
Yeah, good for you, mate.
I feel so much better. I've gained an extra 2 or 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because I can get up early.
And your brain's working.
I can be out walking, or I can be getting my stuff ready to go fishing. I don't rush back in an evening and think, let's go to the pub. I rush back and think, let's go fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and come the 16th of June, that's where you'll find me most nights.
Absolutely.
On the river. I'm so lucky that I can walk from home in a couple of minutes.
And it's a lovely little river.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It is. I've got a true passion for the Weaver through Nantwich. It's just...
For a town stretch of river, I would say it's magnificent. It's probably one of the best.
Yeah, it's
in
super.
The country,
It's superb. And, you know, forget any other NAS waters, 20 quid a year just for the river.
It's ridiculous.
That'll do.
You know, that you would pay, well, I pay that and more for just a day on the Wye, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
it's amazing. And I think, like any river, you get to learn it. The more you get to learn it and understand it, the better results you're going to have.
Yeah.
I know when I started, I was catching nothing. You know, tiny little fish all the time. and thinking that's all that's in it, because you do, don't you? That's
you
all
do.
that's in it is what I'm catching.
Yeah.
And of course, then you learn about different baits, different presentations,
Yes, exactly.
what sort of typical looking area you're going to find fish in, and you're not. You learn different spots, and suddenly you're catching better fish.
And that watercraft is often overlooked, I think, with
Massively, mate.
with people. And even this morning, I walked out with a friend of mine. We went for an early morning walk along the river just to catch up, because we haven't seen each other for a long time. I took 2 rounds of bread, and we're throwing them into spots looking for chub. And,
Yeah.
you know, for Mike to see that as well.
Did you have some takers?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. I'm not telling you where though.
No, you're not. I wouldn't expect you to,
No,
mate.
of course I
Old
wouldn't.
friends or not.
But you know my normal spots. You know
Yeah,
my
I do.
holes.
I do. I recorded them wisely when you first told me. Yeah, and I was a newbie on the river.
But you're right. It is about learning to fish. I was awful the first few times I float fished on the river. You know, I might have been lucky and caught a little days.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very rare that I go home without having caught now. I've caught some wonderful fish.
Yeah.
Really, truly wonderful fish. Perch, my favourite species.
Yours too.
Yeah. Perch and tench, my 2 favourites. To catch a £2 perch on the river is a magical fish.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't overlook the canals locally too, because there's some wonderful fish in the
Yeah.
canals.
I don't fish. I'll be honest with you, mate. I don't fish canals much. I just don't like the environment, the man-made aspect of it.
Yeah.
I like the wild of the river, and which is maybe strange from somebody that fishes day ticket carp waters, but then I don't fish many of them.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, I live at Winterley Match Pool, because that
Beautiful.
for me is perfect.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing.
I don't like busy day tickets. I never go fishing at weekends.
Yeah.
Never, because it's too many people.
Yeah.
Not I've got anything against people per se, but when I'm going fishing, I just want tranquility.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's my escape zone. So yeah, I know what you mean. But it's like anything. You say watercraft, you can overlook it. I overlooked it for years with carp fishing in particular. You know, and you hear people saying, "Oh, you got to do this, you got to do that." And you think, "Oh, shut up, you know, I can catch fish. I caught a couple, so it'll be fine."
Yeah.
Then you go and fish a proper carp water, you know, somewhere like Ashmead, where the fish are wary, they're on it, they're used to you know you're there, and you've got to apply those things if you want to catch anything. Anything at all. So watercraft is massively overlooked because it doesn't feel like a part of fishing. And if you go back to what you were saying earlier about your grandfather saying really wisely as well, you know, take it slowly. I don't know about you, but when I was fishing when I was younger, when I get to that spot I'm fishing at, all I want to do is get that bait in the water. I'm putting the rod like this, come on, hurry up, and doing it. It's taking me twice as long.
Yeah.
And then now, when I go fishing, if I'm going carp fishing, you know, it's an hour before I've even thought about getting the rods out.
Yeah.
And by the time I'm actually casting those rods out, they're going to a very specific spot.
Yeah.
With a very specific rig on it or whatever, and it's changed completely.
Yeah.
But in slowing it down, I also enjoy it vastly more.
Yes, that preparation is for me just as enjoyable as actually casting a line.
Yeah. When I'm preparing for a trip and I'm making my own rigs and I'll say I'm putting some solid bags together, whatever it is I'm doing at home, as far as I'm concerned, I'm fishing.
That's fishing. Yeah.
That's a whole part of it. From the minute you book, if I book the Match Lake at Winterley Pool for 24 hours, the instant I click on that thing on the webpage and it's booked,
you're fishing.
I'm going fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fantastic, especially through when the weather's worse and we don't get out as much. Having been able to do that, you feel like you're not losing that thing, don't you?
Yeah.
Because it can feel like that.
I'm a bit of a fair weather angler.
I'm getting more and more like that, mate.
I don't mind getting caught in the rain, but I ain't sure there's anything going to walk out in it.
No.
No. And I guess that limits my opportunities.
It does, mate.
To a degree,
but if you're not happy doing it, I'm the same.
Yeah.
If I get somewhere now, if I'm going carp fishing, normally the last thing I'll do is put my bivvy up.
Yeah.
Because I want to
try and
be watching and be fishing until it's time to relax. But if it's even the slightest bit of rain, that bivvy goes up before anything.
Yeah, before anything else.
Because if I get wet and then I'm going in my bivvy and everything's damp and you're going to be there all night.
Muddy feet in there and it's grim, isn't it?
And I think that as you get old, I think that is part of getting older as well. You know, you don't feel that I've got no fat on me, I'm as skinny as a rake, I feel the cold, and the older I get, the more I feel the cold.
Feel it, yeah.
You know. But yeah, it's fabulous, it really is. So you've covered your favourite species of fish.
Yes.
Tench and perch.
Tench and perch.
Can't fault you on either of those, mate.
Yeah.
Both beautiful. I mean, picking up a perch, a tench, is like picking up silk, isn't it?
Beautiful.
It's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like no other. I'd only say maybe a trout feels similar.
That's right. Yeah, they do have a
Very
similar feel now
soft,
you come to
delicate,
mention
and
it,
yeah. What about fishing styles? I know that obviously you've got a passion for your sort of authentic, antique
Yeah.
angling equipment. What about fishing styles? I mean, you're predominantly, because I know you. Whenever I see you, it's generally your float fishing.
Yes, I do. Yeah, very rarely do I fish in any other way.
Don't use a ledger.
I do when I go to the Y. I do fish with a ledger for barbel.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
On the Trent and on the River Wye. Tend to again even be quite traditional using the old bullet shot.
Yeah.
And a rolling lead. I use a lighter hook link in case we get snagged up.
Mm-hmm.
But I do ledger, and I will use a swim feeder there because it's needs must. And again, it's what people have been kind enough to share with me over the years.
Yeah.
So that's the only real exception. I seldom, in fact, Dan, I can't even remember the last time I ledger fished on a still water or on the river.
Yeah.
I like to free line luncheon meat on the river.
Yeah.
Maybe with a swan shot just to get it down.
That's when you'd want the river weaver to be just that little bit clearer, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the only downside.
Yeah.
It is a fairly coloured
It is
river.
coloured. And
It would be nice to have a bit more visibility.
even with the smallest of downpours, it seems to change.
Oh
its
yeah,
colour
it's instant.
quickly.
Yeah.
Snags is always an issue, but then again, when you've got a natural river with overhanging branches and bushes, it's always going to be a challenge.
Snags are part of fishing,
But
aren't
it is
they?
part of fishing. You can be snagged up in the canal, you can be snagged up anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's perhaps why I tend not to fish with a ledger on the river. That said, I have spent 2 hours trying to retrieve one of my favourite floats when I snapped off.
I bet, mate.
Walking down with a landing net at every opportunity trying to reach it. I did catch it in the end.
Yeah.
There's 2 hours kind of literally following it downstream.
But with your stuff that you've got, you know, it must be. I mean, obviously, if you lose any fishing gear, it's the money aspect. Oh, there goes another £2. There goes another £5 or whatever. But surely there's more of an emotional investment with your stuff.
Most of my floats are modern floats, but made in the traditional style. Some wonderful float makers out there. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but anybody that's interested in traditional looking floats, there's I wouldn't say an abundance, but there's plenty of people out there.
And are they made to the same methods that they were made originally?
The same methods, the same styles,
wow,
the same colours.
materials, and wow, mate, that's
so they are wonderful. But
it's I've seen some of the gear you've got, and I've always fancied it. I've always thought I'd like to try. Never fish with a centre pin.
Yeah, well, that's something we must try.
Yeah, we must.
Yeah.
I would love to trot a float on a centre pin.
Yeah.
And it's only, how long have we got now till the river reopens? A couple of weeks?
12
if that?
days.
Wow,
That's all.
mate.
Yeah.
Well, we'll sort that out.
That's the one day I've booked off.
Oh, mate, I bet. You and everyone else. Every other angler on the planet.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing whether I get my favourite swim on there.
Yeah.
But you know me, I like to rove around anyway. I don't spend too long in any one spot on the river. So.
Yeah, you see, I tend to find a spot and stick with it.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, and I know I lose out in some ways, you know, because any spot can be fantastic one day, useless the next.
Absolutely, and that I think is the beauty of the river. There's two things that really captivate me. One is no two spots are the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they're not the same from one day to the next. And the other thing is when that float disappears, you're never quite sure what it's going to be.
What it is, no.
You're never quite sure. And I know you've caught carp on the river. I think you've caught tench, or John Joe caught tench.
John Joe's caught tench on the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we've had chub.
Yeah.
Some of my friends have never caught a ruff. I've seemed to have caught a number of ruff on the river.
Yeah. There's more in there than you would expect.
Yeah. And the pleasing thing for me, the last time I went, I caught a number of minnows as well, which is always, for me, a good sign of a healthy river.
Oh,
so,
yeah, 100%, mate. No, there are some good fish in there. There's no doubt about it. But like you say, perch, I've had some lovely £2 perch.
Yeah.
out of there, and there's such an achievement, such a buzz, isn't it? When you catch a nice perch on a wild river, you know, because again, a lot of the places I fish, you know what's in there, you know sometimes where it is, you get to look, the river doesn't work that way.
No,
it has its own little
life
agenda going on, doesn't it? And again, that whole thing about when your float goes down, you don't know what it is. Now that is part of what really got me into fishing when I was sea fishing. You know, started off feathering for mackerel. Well, you're going to catch mackerel. You might catch the occasional bass. You know, but when we're fishing on the bottom near wrecks and stuff like that, you have no idea.
It's going to be
no idea what it's going to be, and that really gave me a buzz.
Yeah.
Just like waiting to see that fish, and of course then the dreaded comes off before you even got to see it.
Yeah.
What is it about that? I will never know what it was. Doesn't matter how much I think about it and think, I will. The fact is, I will never know.
That's where your imagination kicks in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But that's also the determination then to tackle up again and get out.
100%, mate. I had it happen 2 weeks ago at Winterley. I did a night on my own, and I had a fish at 4 a.m. on, and it took me straight into the lily pads, and eventually the hook pulled.
Yeah.
Thank goodness the hook pulled. Yeah. But it was in those pads, and of course it felt amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge.
It felt amazing. Is it even a fish?
Yeah.
You know, and then of course it comes off, and again you're left with that thing.
Yeah. What was it?
I will never ever
you never
know. You just got to let it go, and off we go with it. Is there anything you say that with Nantwich Anglers Society? You're looking constantly for new waters. Is there anything in the pipeline at the minute in particular? Have you got your eyes on anywhere? I don't expect you to give anything away.
Yeah,
but
we're always looking, Dan, if I'm honest. We've taken on the Groby Flash, as you know.
Yeah.
That's a good water. We've done some work on there. There needs to be more work done in terms of clearing out the old landing stages and the snags.
Right.
We're always looking for new waters.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a challenge because they're limited locally. As I mentioned earlier, landowners are not always keen to have anglers traipsing across their land for numerous reasons, and I totally understand that. We're constantly looking, that's all I can say to you.
Right.
If anybody knows of waters that may be interesting to us, let one of the committee know, because we're always looking for the opportunity. It has to be the right water. It's not just a case of filling our card up with plenty of places to fish. It has to be right, and it has to be accessible for us. Yeah. It has to be the right money, of course, and it has to be for the long term, not just dipping in and out of contracts.
Yeah, you need that longevity, don't you?
So it's a partnership approach that we take with all our landowners.
So how do you go about it? I mean, just out of interest, if you're, here's the way I would imagine it. I get on Google Maps, and I look for waters. Find out where they are, find out if it's on a farm, who owns it, and just go and approach them. Is that pretty much what you do?
Yeah, that's about it. Unless there's any personal relationships, people who know somebody who's got a pool or has got a stretch of river, etc. Yeah. But it is literally no more complicated than that. Yeah, yeah. And I think that initial connection with the landowner is key. Yeah. You know, what does it say? 10 seconds to make the first impression. Always. So if we don't do that and we don't do it properly and professionally, then quite rightly we'll be turned away. Yeah. You know, there are clubs out there that have got a lot more money than us, undoubtedly. So we're constantly competing for waters in that sense. Yeah. But I think we do a good job. Right. You know, the club's in very safe hands. Good. With all of us on the committee. We intend to keep it that way. Yeah. We're not going to overstretch, and we're not going to overcommit. Good. So fair play, mate. I can give you that confidence. It's good to know that you have that clear-cut direction. You know, we have a real passion, all of us, for not just angling but for the society as well. Yeah. Because we know what it means. We know it's been cared for and looked after for so long. And handed down. And handed down and handed down. We're only custodians of the club. Yeah, like we are of the planet. Of everything else. Yeah. So we have to look after it. We have to ensure that it's in good shape for whoever comes along in the future. Good for you, mate. That's good to hear. It really is. Right.
couple of little interesting questions for you,
Okay.
mate, which I'd give to anybody that's going to come on the podcast. And by the way, on that note, if anybody that's watching, if you'd like to come on the podcast and have a chat, and as you can hopefully tell, you know, this isn't some high pressure, over professional deal. Things will be changing. We've got our own little zone here at the HF Angling headquarters, which will be used for the podcast, and we're going to have that you know, I don't know, what's the word? Tarted up a little bit, mediated up a little bit to get in with the kids and all that. But no, if anybody's interested in coming on, whether you're an angler or whether, you know, like Stuart, you're a committee member or you've got some specific area of angling that it's taken you, that your journey's taken you into, we would love for you to come on. If you're interested, either pop into the shop, have a word with any of the staff, they'll get in touch with me, or you can email me, that's dan@hfangling.co.uk. The way it works is, as I did with you, Stuart, I just send you a very basic, about as basic as it can be, little guide to the sort of questions that we're going to talk about, things that we mustn't talk about. And we'll get you on. And we're aiming to do this every month. It's been a bit of a gap since the last one. We had some technical problems as well, but we're aiming now to go every month. So again, please do get in touch if you're interested at all. And equally, if you run a water or a club, a committee, a society, and you have any news, anything that you think you'd like the HF Angling customers to hear, then please let me know, and eventually we'll develop a sort of little news section at the end of every podcast where I'll cover all those points for you. And guess what? It's free of charge, not going to cost you anything, so get on with it. It's not messing about. Right, a couple of little cheeky questions here, just little interesting ones. Imagine now, you're only allowed, for the rest of your life, you're going to hate just the thought of this, but you're only allowed to fish at one venue.
Yeah.
You're only allowed to use one style of fishing.
Yeah.
One bait.
Yeah.
Now you can have a ground bait mix, we'll allow you that, but only one hook bait is allowed.
Yeah.
What would be your choices and why?
I think that's really easy for me.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is really easy. I think it would be ashmead.
Yeah.
I think the method would be a float.
Yeah.
The bait would be a worm, and the species would be tench.
Nice. Very, very, no questions there at all.
Yeah, not difficult to, because I know also there's some cracking perch in there as well.
Yeah.
So I think that method would catch me both of my favourite
Equally,
species.
mate, and you might get the occasional carp on there as well, you never know.
I hope not on the cane.
Yeah, that'd be fun, wouldn't it?
It would. There'd be a bit of
Bloody hell.
creaking going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be similar. I must admit, I was thinking about this question myself, and I think that bait-wise, it's got to be worm.
Most versatile bait.
Absolutely.
For me, absolutely. You can catch anything on there. From eels to roach to bream to you name it.
Yeah, anything will have a worm.
Yeah. Every time I go, there's a tub of worms.
Yeah. Right, final question, mate. Bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
What, if anything, gets you down about fishing?
Oh, that's a tough question because I'm probably going to offend a few people here.
No.
So, there's one thing that really grinds my gears, and yet ironically, it plays into my hands so much, and that is the emergence of carp fishing as being seen as the method.
The boom.
Yeah, the boom.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, it's brilliant for industry, it's brilliant for the manufacturers, it's brilliant for the shops, etc. And it's brilliant for me because it means the less people are going to go on the river. So,
right,
from a selfish point of view.
Yeah.
However, I do think, and the reason I say this is people, I believe, are missing out on so much
Other
great
areas.
angling. Yeah. So much great angling. You know, do I want to catch a fish from a lake that's been caught a number of times that's got a name? Probably not.
No.
In fact, I really wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do that. I want to catch, if I catch a carp on the canal, awesome. It's probably been caught before, but I don't know about it.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, and it is only a little nickel. It's not, you know.
So,
I don't
and it's
have a
more
passion
that
about it.
it kind of concerns you that people are missing out on different.
Yeah, on, and I think it limits people's experience to fishing. I know how hard it is to catch carp. Yeah, you know how hard it is to catch carp. You can spend a 48-hour session and not even have a run.
Oh yeah.
In just a fraction of that time on the river, you might have caught 4 decent perch and a chub.
Yeah, yeah. Now I asked this question because before I got so much into carp fishing, I asked this question to a carp angler, one of the lads here actually. I said, I don't get it, mate. I enjoy catching fish.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've been doing this carp fishing that you guys do, I don't catch any bloody fish. Right, so I'm not fishing. I feel like I'm not fishing when I do that. And his explanation actually did make a lot of sense to me. Again, it's a personal preference. It's what you want.
Definitely.
But what he basically said was, but when you catch one, that's the reward. And so I got that. And now because I've done it, I totally get that. But still, for me, I actually think, because I've thought about this a lot, I think, and people may well hate me for this, it's a good job I don't care. I think carp fishing is different to any other type of fishing intrinsically. I think when I'm carp fishing, it might be different for other people, but when I'm carp fishing, proper carp fishing, or I'm river fishing, they're not even connected. They're not even connected. And I think that comes from not just the fact that you can go hours without catching or seeing your float bob down, which we all love or whatever, but I think it's also different for the person that's doing it, because when you do that type of fishing, carp fishing, you're not expecting to catch a different type of fish. You're not expecting to catch a fish in half an hour.
You know exactly what
you know exactly what you're there for. So I think it's just two very different things, isn't it?
They are different.
Very different. But I get what you're saying. It's the boom, isn't it? And it bugs me too, because there are places that I'd like to go fishing that I won't go to because I know that you're queuing up to get a peg. And it's rammed. I went to, and I will mention it, I went to Goresworth Fisheries. Wood pool on Goresworth, which is like their specimen pool. And they got loads of fish in there, mate. And it's great because you can sit there with a float rod while your carp rods are out, which is what I always do. And I'll do that at any venue if I can. I will always do that if it's possible. Sit with a little float rod, bit of pleasure fishing while I'm waiting for my hard work on the carp rods to pay off. But I went to Goresworth just after the first lockdown. I'd been a few times before. John Joe and I had done, and Ian as well. We'd done a few nights there, and I thought it's all right. It's a bit of a runs water, but it's all right. It's all right. But we went there just after lockdown when we were first allowed to go fishing again. Never been back since.
Really?
Because what I saw that day was the reality of commercial day ticket fishing. And I didn't like it one bit, mate. I didn't like it one bit. There was bivvies on every single peg around the lake. You imagine the amount of lines that were in the water, the amount of bait that was being thrown in the water, which is a real bugbear of mine.
Exactly.
Because it ruins it. Let's just chuck a ton of bait at it. You just think it's just ruining it for everyone else. But I get it, people are campaigning the water for a few days, fine. But when people go to a day ticket for one day and they chuck in 5 kilograms of boilies, I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. But it was the amount of bait, the people, and I actually, mate, felt sorry for the fish. I looked at this scenario I was in and I just felt sorry for the fish. I thought, this is horrible. So I've never been back.
So you've hit the nail on the head for me. It's not my cup of tea.
This is what it is. It's personal choice.
It's personal choice. There's a place for it and there's a clientele for it, of course.
Absolutely.
But for me, no, I love just the little more natural. And there'll be people saying, well, Ashmead's a carp fishery. But it's lots more than that.
Absolutely, mate. No, it's not. It's like if you go to, let's say, Church Lake, Dream Lake in Essex. I've been lucky enough to go there once. You're going to catch carp. That's it. That is just
what it's all about.
A carp lake and a bloody good one at that, an amazing place, and there's no doubt. I think probably I'm lucky, mate, because I enjoy both. I enjoy both aspects. I enjoy the carp bit, and I'm not missing out. But I get what you're saying, and I think that there are people that if people start fishing carp angling and they've never done any other type of fishing, then I think they will miss out.
They're missing out.
I think they will. But again, it's their choice. If they and it's not difficult to see there's other types of fish, and if they don't fancy them, fine. But it's a shame, isn't it?
It is a shame.
They won't get that buzz of watching the float.
Watching that float disappear.
Yeah.
And not knowing what's on the end of that line.
That's
and
it.
That's the beauty for me. And that takes me all the way back to where we started the conversation. As to the magic of angling.
Absolutely. But this is the thing about it, mate, and I think we've highlighted it quite nicely here, is that it just goes to show that somebody from outside of angling altogether, right, you say to them, that guy over there's a fisherman, they have
an image
of what that guy does.
Going to be like.
And they've no idea about the variation.
No,
and this is
course.
one of the things that I do love about fishing is the variation.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a very different day. A friend and customer of mine is a very, very experienced and devoted salmon angler. Goes up to Scotland a lot, writes articles in the salmon magazines, and they're not the ones the salmon read, these are the ones that the humans read about the salmon. Because those other ones are just weird. I'm trying to read them. But yeah, his experience of angling is nothing like mine, and probably yours.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's just a completely different thing.
It's a different world, isn't it?
So
and,
it's just and that's a nice thing about fishing. There's such a breadth of different.
Well, isn't it nice that it caters for so many different views and approaches and attitudes and
and as you say, from a
styles.
selfish point of view, it's good in a way that loads of people are into carp angling.
Yeah.
Because they're not at the waters that you're going to, and there's more fish for you to catch.
There's more, well,
or not catch.
Or not catch, probably.
For both of us, probably
more appropriate. But you know, the beauty for me, I can walk up and down the river for 3 or 4 hours in the morning and not see a soul.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, we're not tripping over each other. I haven't got somebody on the other bank casting across.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not
et cetera,
fighting for a
et cetera.
spot.
You're not fighting for a space.
Mate, that's the end, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, it's just not worth it for me, that. You know.
It is what it is, and each to their own.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I kind of work part-time.
Yeah.
And so I can go fishing in the week. And if it means I've got to work the weekend, great, I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't drink.
Yeah.
I don't go out socialising, so I don't miss.
Yeah.
I'm not missing
It's
out.
not like you're missing out.
No, I'm not. And so I'd much rather work at the weekend and then just have some time in the week. And that suits me down to the ground. And again, it's not because I don't like anyone in particular. I just like the tranquility.
Yeah.
That's a massive part of it for me. Massive part.
Yeah. The peace and quiet, and I'm a miserable herb at times, and if I'm out for 3 hours and don't speak to anybody, that suits me just
No,
fine.
absolutely.
Suits
Look,
me
we
just
can
fine.
all be sociable people, but that downtime on your own, I think it's very underrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we all need that. Because we are surrounded by, as you put it earlier, the noise,
The noise,
that
there's
chaos
a whole
of
host
life,
of noise,
and
yeah.
especially the days we live in at the minute, mate. So much negativity going on and so much judgmental behaviour. When you go fishing on your own,
It's amazing.
it's just bliss, isn't it?
It
It is
is.
absolute bliss. But is that the only thing that gets you down about carp fishing?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah,
That
it's
and
not
litter.
a real big thing. Litter,
I mean, any fishing,
litter,
not carp fishing.
litter and
Yeah, litter, me
and-
as well.
put bad behaviour on the bank is just
Yeah.
I find that really, people are kind enough to give us access to these places. A lot of it is personal and private property that they open up to the masses.
Yeah.
The very least we can do is respect it and love it and
Absolutely.
take our stuff home.
Yeah, yeah. I think that some people may, unfortunately, they are few and far between.
Yeah, they are.
They are few and far between, but I think those people, they're just a different animal. They
Yeah.
don't appreciate that nature. They can't do.
Well,
Because you couldn't appreciate nature like we do and then just leave a load of crap lying around.
I find it really difficult to explain.
Yeah, I'm the same, mate. It's
It
very.
doesn't sit with me. It just doesn't resonate in any way at all.
It's not like they've got to make a lot of effort to take stuff away that
Yeah.
they've already brought with them anyway.
Exactly.
You know, it's just.
Exactly.
But but if there's only two things about angling that get you down, mate, then I think it's a good job
it.
you're an angler.
Yeah, and I
isn't
think
it?
one of the latter is littering in general.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wherever it is, whether
Yeah.
it's on the bankside or I see somebody chuck
McDonald's
something out
box
the
out the
window
car.
or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
mate, I know.
So that's not angling specific.
No.
So that's it really. So I guess I'm pretty chilled out about the whole
Good.
thing.
One last question which isn't written down.
Go on.
When are we going fishing, mate?
16th of June.
Let's do it. Mate, it's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure to have you on.
It's a
It
pleasure.
really has. Keep up all the good work.
Yeah.
And
You too.
we will go fishing 16th of June.
Yeah.
100%, I'm holding that to you. So thanks again. And thanks for watching, guys.
Thank
Hope you
you.
enjoyed that. Please leave any comments, any suggestions. We're new at this. say we're jazzing it up a little bit. We've got some signage that we're going to be putting up in the new area. Just make it look not too professional, but just a little bit more polished. But again, hope everybody enjoyed it. Tight lines on the bank. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.